So there was a fellow traveling or hiking through the Himalayas, and he was all by himself, and he was starting to get a little worried because it was getting dark, and he was starting to not be able to see in front of him, and he didn't have shelter for the night, so he didn't know what he was going to do. And then he saw a light in the background, and he started following that light and heading towards that light, and he got to it, and it ended up being a monastery. And so the abbot opens the door and says, "Welcome, fellow traveler, hiker, come in. We'll shelter you tonight. We're just about to have our evening meal. You're welcome to join us. We love to joke around and play and have fun at our evening meal, so just join us tonight." And so they go into this big hall and they have meals and they're all sitting around eating. And one of the monks stands up and he yells, "24!" And everybody starts laughing, and they're clapping their hands and they're stomping their cups on the table. And then another monk jumps up and says, "37!" And they all start laughing and clapping and, pounding their mugs on the table. And the traveler's like, "What is going on?" He says to the abbot. What are they doing? And he says, "Oh, well, we've told the same joke so many times that we've numbered them. And so we just now, instead of telling the jokes over, we just yell out the number, and everybody knows what the joke is, and they laugh because it's a good joke." And the hiker says, "Well, could I try? Could I try one?" And the abbot said, "Yes, of course. So, just stand up and yell at a number." And so he stands up, he goes, "47!" And everybody's laughing, and they're cracking up, and they're, pounding their mugs on the table because it's such a great joke. And the traveler says, "Can I try another one? I want to try another one." And the abbot said, "You sure?" He goes, 112. And there's silence. And then all of a sudden, the monks start laughing hysterically. They're wiping their eyes. They're crying so hard. They're laughing so hard, and they're stomping and clapping. And the hiker sits down and says to the abbot, "They must have liked that one, huh?" He goes, the abbot said, "Yeah, that was a great one. They never heard that one before." So if you have a joke, just yell out a number. I share that because we're talking about playfulness and play and fun and having fun. And how many were here last night? We had such fun last night. It was such a great time. Yeah. Cody Qualls and the brand new Ancients, and the house was full and rocking and dancing. And yes, it was a great time. Great time, a lot of fun. That the purpose of it was just to connect people and have a good time. So how many of you danced at least once? Great. How many of you ate an empanada? Awesome. Less people than the dancers. Wow. How many of you already exercised this morning? There's a few of you already exercised. Wow, I'm impressed. How many of you are excited about the Denver Nuggets? Yeah, game 2 tonight. How many of you love this rainy weather? Oh, wow, I didn't expect that. How many of you are building an ark? We've had so much rain. Nobody's building an ark? Planning to build an ark? No? Oh, I was going to ask if I could be one of your guests in the ark. So thanks for playing along with me this morning on this little mini quiz this morning, but I wanted to start out with something light and have you be participating and raising your hands. Is going to make you stand up, and I thought, no, all that dancing last night, maybe we should just not do that. But play. It's different for everyone, right? It's different. It's so hard. We can't even define it. It's so different for everyone. Everyone has a different idea of what play is for them, but it's essential for our well-being and essential for our soul growth. It says in the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 1-3, "At that time the disciples came to Jesus and asked, 'Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?' He called a child whom he put among them and said, 'Truly, I tell you, unless you change and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.'" We're supposed to be childlike. I didn't say childish. Childlike, full of wonder, full of awe, full of curiosity, full of play. You watch children play, they just play. There's no structure to it. There's no rules to it. If they're really having fun, there's no rules. They don't even have to have supervision. They're just playing. And that's what Jesus is calling us to do in this scripture, to be childlike. To don't lose that sense of inner play in order to get to the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom of heaven in unity, we say, is the Christ consciousness, or consciousness of spirit, of knowing that we are this, all of this spiritual being that we are. We want to have this sense of play and joy in our hearts and let that out, let that inner child out and play. See where it takes you. See where that inner child takes you. See what it wants to do. Let that little girl out, that little boy out. Marilyn McIntyre is a spiritual teacher and author, and she's written like 15 books or something. And she says, to play is to claim our freedom as beloved children of God. Children who feel completely safe and loved are playful. To play is to live in grace. So we want to be like children. When we feel safe, we can play, right? It's a sense of freedom. Play gives us that sense of freedom. Ran across this Confucius saying, somebody is asking him, one of his disciples was asking him a typical question that he gets asked by thousands of people, says, what's it like, what happens to us after death? And you know what Confucius' answer was? All these thoughts about death you can contemplate in your grave after death. There is a time to live, and there is a time to die. Right now is a time to live. You are living, so live and play and have fun. And don't mix them up. Don't mix up living and dying. Right now, totally live with intensity, with playfulness, with joy. And then when you're ready to die, then die totally. It says, don't waste time contemplating things that are far away. Live in the moment. The child knows how to do this. Children know how to do this. They live in the moment. They create games and plays and all kinds of ways to be creative and play, all on their own. And we can do that too. We're called to do that. I didn't realize how much there was on play until yesterday when I start, Googling play and spirituality and play. And there's so much stuff on play on the internet. There's so much. And one of the authors who wrote a book called Play, maybe you've heard of him, Stuart Brown. He wrote a book called Play, and he's the founder of the National Institute for Play, where they do lots of studies and research about play and how essential it is for us as human beings to play. And he talks about how it's different for everyone. And he was about to go, in the beginning of his book, he talks about how he's planning a talk that he's going to give for a bunch of engineers about play. And one of his colleagues says, well, what definition of play are you going to use? And he's like, you can't define play. I'm not going to use a definition. And Stuart says, or the colleague says to Stuart, you're speaking to a bunch of engineers. They will eat you alive if you don't give them a definition of play. And so he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. So he ends up making a chart of the properties of play. And he uses that in his talk to these engineers, and they like charts. They like data. They like to see all this. So it worked out really well for him. But he said that these properties of play are the same as the properties of freedom, of how we feel when we feel free. We can be at play. And he says, as he talked about this, the engineers relaxed. Like, it's not all about work. And at least he's got something that he's saying to us that is useful. But play is fun and joyful. Anyone can do it. Anyone can play. And there's no rules. What somebody might consider play, someone else might consider torture. It's essential for children to play and for adults for our well-being. It helps us work out life's problems. Now, play is also a way of creating simulations in life so that we can work things out. We can take risks. We can see how behaviors play out, how things unfold when we're playing. So then we can apply that to real life situations. Play is so important to us as adults. And when it's denied over a long time, our moods get dark. We become less optimistic. We need play in our lives, whatever it is for you. For me, running is play. For some of you might think that's like the worst thing in the world. That's the last thing I want to do is go for a run, right? Doing research and reading for me is play. That's why I like this job. I get to do that every week. But for some of you, it'd be like, that's not fun at all. I wouldn't want to do that. That's not play. But I get totally involved in it, and I lose track of time. I started last night after the concert. The next thing I know, it's 11:30. I'm like, ooh, I got to get some sleep. But it's fun for me, whereas other parts maybe not so much fun. But Stuart Brown says in his book, play is a state of mind rather than an activity. The definition of play, an absorbing, apparently purposeless activity that provides enjoyment and a suspension of self-consciousness and sense of time. It's also self-motivating and makes you want to do it again. So leave that up just a moment, that slide. It's absorbing. We lose track of time and purposeless. Okay, there can be some purpose when I play with my research, but purposeless. There doesn't have to be any reason why we're doing it. Kevin and I were driving here this morning and past the golf course on 95th and thought, look at these people out on the golf course playing in the rain. Like, that would be torture to me. But they're out there playing golf. Enjoyment and suspension of self-consciousness. When we're doing something that we're playing at, we're having fun at, we're dancing like last night, do we care how we look? I mean, maybe we do, but really, we're just having fun. We're just moving our bodies. We're just having a good time. When I'm running, I don't care how I look. I'm yelling, yay, God, and stuff when I'm in a really good run. Not every run is a really good run, but that's okay. And sometimes it's all about the steps, but that's a whole nother story. But we lose a suspension of self-consciousness and sense of time. We lose track of time because we're having so much fun. And it's self-motivating. We want to do it again and do it again and do it again. You ever notice how little kids, when you're playing some game with them, they're like, let's do that again. Let's do that again. And as adults, we go, again, really, again? But, think of a kid in a high chair that drops the floor on the food and likes watching you pick it up. You pick it up, they drop. What do? They drop it on the floor again. Pick it up. Or a dog, playing with a dog, throwing a ball. Throw it again, throw it again, throw it again. It's okay. Play gives us that. It makes us want to do it again because it's fun. It's so much fun. We like to think of God or Spirit as having fun being a creator. Think about the variety of creatures that were created. What's up with snakes and mosquitoes? Why? God was having fun with it. And God says, let's do it again. Think about a sunset. Let's do it again. A sunrise. Let's do it again. Or a flower blooming. Do we ever get tired of seeing that? We went away for a couple of weeks, and we have these beautiful peonies in our front yard. And the buds were all out, but none of them had opened yet when we left. And I was so worried we were going to miss them. I couldn't remember from last year, because last year was the first year we were in that house. But I couldn't remember how long they last. And I thought, and I'm looking on my ring, trying to see, when we're in Europe, trying to see if they're blooming. You can't tell from the ring camera at the front door. But anyway, we didn't miss them. And we're so excited. They're beautiful right now. They're blooming. They're opening. Who gets tired of seeing that? We don't get tired of that. We don't get tired of seeing the sun set or the sun rise. It's play. It's nature at play. Nature at play. Never get tired of seeing nature's amazing cycles. Amazing cycles. And each time we see that, each time we see the flowers blooming or the sun setting, we experience it in a slightly different way. It's a new experience for it, because we never experience anything exactly the same. And that's play. That's being playful, having a sense of playfulness. I called today's talk the power of playfulness. There's no spiritual power that I know of called playfulness, at least not the Unity 12 powers that we talk about. That's not one of the powers. But there is power in that playfulness because it's so essential to us. We don't quite experience everything the same way. We were on a river cruise on the Danube. We got on the ship in Budapest and then went upstream to Regensburg, Germany. And I think it was the first night that we were cruising, and we got to a lock. And they told us we were going to be in a lock. So as you're going up the Danube, the river keeps getting higher, and so they have all these locks. And the first lock, like everyone on the ship is on the top deck wanting to, we got to experience the lock. Everybody lines their chairs up at the front of the ship as if like that is where we're going to see everything happen. We didn't know. And everybody's so excited, and we're like all chumming with everybody. We didn't know everybody, but it was so much fun. There were 17 locks on the Danube. By the end of our, nobody's paying any attention. Oh, we're in another lock. Oh, do it again. But that's our human nature. It's human nature. We need to hit the play button. Hit the play button. In our online worlds, we're so used to seeing that little arrow, right? And that arrow, when we push that little arrow, it'll play music, or it'll play a podcast, or it'll play a TV show, or whatever it is we're wanting to start. We hit the play button. In life, we need to hit our own play buttons. Some of you are going, I have a play button? I didn't know I had a play button. Where is that play button, and how do I push it? And it's not the same as pushing buttons, other buttons. This is about having fun and setting your mind, getting a mindset of playfulness, not taking everything so seriously. I know I need this lesson myself because I tend to be really serious. So much responsibility on my shoulders. We were driving here this morning, and Kevin was talking about his brown shoes, and when he got his brown shoes that he's wearing, he can show everybody. If you want to see his brown shoes after he bought them in Europe a few years ago, I didn't remember that. And we're talking about brown, what a dull color brown. Well, I was reminded of a story in this book called Hope Will Find You. I've mentioned it before. It's by Naomi Levy. She's a rabbi, and her final class to become a rabbi was with an old master rabbi. I don't know what the term is for that, but she was meeting with him, and it was on homiletics about giving sermons. And she says to him at the very end, can you give me some wise advice could you give me? And she's thinking she's going to get this, life-changing advice. And he says, don't wear brown. And she's like, that's it? Don't wear brown? Don't wear brown? This is your final bit of advice before I become a rabbi? And she had to take that in, and then she realized Don't wear brown. Go bold. Live life. Brown is, nothing wrong with brown. I'm not putting anybody down that's wearing brown today. I have kind of a shade of brown on. But live out loud. Live boldly. Live with purpose. Live with passion. That's what he was saying. Don't wear brown. Don't let yourself just be ho-hum about life, but be lively and playful and fun. And then she got it. Don't wear brown. Wear bright colors. Wear something that makes you feel good. Feel alive. I ran across a parable last night, and it goes like this. The master once referred to the Hindu notion that all creation is Leela, meaning God's play. It's a word that means God's play. And the universe is God's playground. The aim of spirituality, then, is to make all life play. This seemed too frivolous for the puritanical visitor who asked, is there no room then for work? Of course there is, said the Hindu master, but work becomes spiritual only when it is transformed into play. We have to transform everything we do into play so it has that sense of curiosity and joy and fun, because that's what we are here to experience. And yes, life is always going to have its challenges and its sadness and the whole gamut of human emotions. We will experience all of it. But we are called and invited into always looking for that joy inside, that playfulness, bringing that mindset forward and bringing that lightness to everything we do and spreading it. Just a smile sometimes to somebody can mean the whole world to their day, and we don't even know it. Many of us think that spirituality is a reward, or play is a reward for doing your work. Well, once I get done with my work, then I can go play. Bring the play to your work. Bring the play from your work. Express from a consciousness of playfulness, and your work won't feel like work. It'll feel like fun. We need to tap into that inner part of ourselves that can do that. There was I get a blog post every Friday from Carey Nieuwhof, who's a ministry consultant, and he talked about he sent a chart with the creative routines of famous people. And he said it's interesting that most famous people did not work like intensely throughout their day. They'd work little bits. Mozart worked 2 hours composing in the morning and 2 hours at night. Tchaikovsky, 2 hours in the morning. That was it. Who else? Charles Dickens, 5 hours a day writing. Not all day. He didn't cram it in and try to get it all done at once. Victor Hugo, who wrote Les Miserables, worked on it 2 hours a day. The other parts of their day were spent napping, going for a walk, meeting with friends, having a luncheon with someone. They didn't spend all their time working. Because to be creative, we need to step away and do something else. We need a balance in our lives. He then says, Honoré de Balzac worked 13 and a half hours a day and drank up to 50 cups of coffee to keep him going. Does anyone know who that is? I was going to say, I thought everybody would say no, and I'd say, rest my case. He was a French writer, author. And anyway, most people haven't heard of him. Working 13 and a half hours a day. So where is that play button for you? And are you ready to push it? Are you ready to live out loud? That's our theme this year, live out loud. So live out loud and push that play button. Live out loud, live with purpose and passion. Truly alive, be truly alive. There was a blog that I saw yesterday called putthelightthere.com. And I love this little saying that they had at the bottom of one of their posts. From my inner child to your inner child, may you always be filled with wonder, curiosity, and innocence. May your life always know play, laughter, and song. And may you always see the magic in the world. Hit your play button and see the magic in your world. Namaste.